Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Bleav.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football to NBA, college basketball, NHL, and UFC, BetOnline is your number one betting source for the new year. Every touchdown to three-pointer and hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, every win. BetOnline, the game starts here.
This is the Bleav in the Warhawks podcast, part of the Bleav Network, with hosts Dusty Thibodeau.
I seem to be the only guy they can find to talk to.
And Chase Region.
Just offensive line, man. Still not getting credit for shit, and it's cool.
Chase, another episode in the books. It was a great one last time when we had head coach Bryant Vincent. Yeah. What were your thoughts or your biggest takeaways there from that great long interview and even after the show discussion with him?
Yeah, I mean, learned a lot. I think I told you earlier that BV's kind of a real serious guy, and I was trying really hard for most of the interview to kind of break him out of it a little bit. But, I mean, so grateful he spent that much time, you know, and we talked about earlier, like he was really tired by the time we got done because it was pretty late in the night. But so introspective, and you know, I appreciate the way he works and appreciate the way that he kind of approaches this job and has approached this job. So I'm just felt super grateful when we got done.
We did get 2 laughs out of him, by the way.
Yeah, and he's got an interesting laugh. And you thankfully you brought up the short thing, and you didn't tell him that I call him short all the time, which I'm really, really grateful for, because the whole time when he's telling the story about him and John Hartwell, I could just think of like the 1.5 foot difference there is between those two men. And but yeah, you did me a solid there.
Well, that's all right, because, you know, you just told on yourself. So we know he listens to Christian music on the way to the stadium, but there's going to be that one morning where he goes, what are these guys always talking about?
Yeah, and I don't make any super derogatory terms. Just coach, just if you ever listen to this, it was just the first time meeting you. You scared me. The top of your head, great hair, and it just, you know, it just got a little – I just wasn't used to it. Actually, I say I wasn't used to it, but I worked with Coach Bowden the week before or the year before, so – it was a nice surprise, maybe. I don't know. I can't back myself out of this one.
Chase, you always have such great insight. And everyone that DMs me, texts me about the show is like, he's got a great radio voice. He's got a great radio voice.
I've got the third best radio voice. But
we have the voice tonight of the Warhawks, Mike Hammett, joining us from an undisclosed location in hiding after the Warhawks actually got a men's basketball win against South Alabama and at home. Yeah. Mike, are you able to disclose your location?
I'm in the Marriott in Mobile, so we're getting ready for more Warhawk basketball, and the wonderful side effect of the winter storm last week of getting to play the same team twice in 72 hours. But it was pretty awesome on my chart that some of the stuff auto-populates into my chart. It was pretty awesome to see that one pop up in the conference win category this week. So that felt good.
You have the front row for all this. And I mean, I'm on the outside looking in, having to stream a lot of games, but also doing my fair share of traveling around to catch them when I can. It's a depth issue, is it not, Mike? I mean, this team just doesn't have enough players to really sustain a full 40-minute game.
I think that's a lot of it. And, you know, there's other factors, too. I think the depth is the biggest thing. It helps now that Raynar Saunders is back, and he's been back for a couple of games, came back last week after missing 2 months with his foot injury. And, you know, they couldn't even scrimmage live in practice. They didn't have enough guys. They had 9 healthy guys in practice, so you can't go 5-on-5 full court. So I think that really affected things over the last couple of months. And now they can finally do that again. So I think that's a big positive. I think the other thing for this bunch is, you know, I've felt like this team has – probably 6, 7, maybe 8 with Raynar's back. I think they're solid players. I think they're okay. They're good role players. They're good guys that, can really contribute and do things that you ask them to do in particular. But not one of them do I really feel like is that guy that when the other team gets an 8-0 run or a 10-0 run and the momentum's swinging their way, do you look at them and say, hey, go get us a bucket? And so you don't have that star player. I think it's a team. It's a bunch of guys. There's no one guy that stands out and takes everything over. And I think that's hurt a little bit. Even last year, Tyreek LaCour could take over a game if he had to at times, but this year, this team, I think overall, maybe talent-wise is maybe a little deeper than last year. But again, when you don't have that star, it's just a bunch of guys trying to play together as a team. Sometimes you need that guy that can just take things over and go. And I don't know that they have that. And that's not to knock the guys they have, because I think they've got some solid pieces. Just, don't have that one dude.
Yeah, I really thought that Tyrese Watson was going to turn into that for us. And I know that he's been playing great and Jalen's scoring really well. But, do you think that – what's the future? Do you think that these – obviously it's such a weird time. College basketball's always been weird. But, you get a new head coach. Do you think you see any great young players that you think you'll see will do well here at ULM in basketball in the future?
It's going to be interesting when they make the hire, whoever that ends up being. Your
Can
guess
you give us
is
your
as
top
good as
three?
mine.
Oh, dang.
No, I don't get paid enough to have a top three. My top three don't matter. But, I think it's interesting, though, because John Hartwell has made 2 great hires so far, Missy Bilderback and then Bryant Vincent, that have injected life into programs that were really struggling. And I kind of feel like a lot of folks, and myself included, kind of look at this and go, I feel like this is going to be another injection of life coming into men's basketball. And how does the new coach embrace the portal and embrace what this era is? And, I think you see ULM could be the spot. I think, again, you figure it out. It's kind of a similar formula to football. You can go out and get a guy and say, hey, I'm here. We're going to give you lots of minutes and you have a chance to be a guy to lead a team. And then, we're going to give you an opportunity to go somewhere else and make some money and do that. But that's the big thing, is get them to campus, tell them that. But then once you have them here, then you're trying to recruit them and create the atmosphere and whatnot to get them to stay. And so it's kind of that 2-part thing. So I really think it's going to turn into something like that, where you're trying to get guys here. Maybe it's a freshman-based team, South Alabama, how they do it. It's a bunch of D2 and NAIA guys that were recruited and can certainly play at this level. And talking to JT Crabtree the other night, he said, that according to what he's heard, they're not spending anything in South Alabama and men's basketball because they got a bunch of dudes who are just happy to be playing Division I basketball.
That's awesome.
So, that's kind of another route to look at. So, I'm interested to see who the hire is. I think it's going to be, interesting to see how they navigate this, because the transfer portal in NIL has changed this landscape entirely, as we all well know. How do you survive as ULM in this? And we're starting to see the blueprint in football. Is the new coach going to deliver what the blueprint can be in basketball too?
Mike, put on your AD hat.
Yes, do this to him.
What's the profile that you're looking for in a coach that you feel could really thrive?
I think it's somebody that you've got to be able to, I think the biggest thing is somebody that can really scout talent and find the guys who are under recruited, because that's what you need. You got to go out and find guys that maybe are flying under the radar a little bit and can play at this level. And, also be able to develop those guys too. You want them to come here and develop them. And like I say, be able to send them off to the next big thing. Hopefully you're able to convince them to stay and show them that, we're trying to build something here and get this team back to the postseason and maybe make a run in Pensacola one year. If you can find whatever that sweet spot seed is, as long as we keep this stair-step tournament format that we've got coming up, but it's just, I think one of those that you got to balance that, the search for talent and the development abilities. You got to have somebody who's a big time recruiter and loves that and can recognize those guys that are flying under the radar, but also develop that staff around you, guys that can come in and take their game to the next level and keep them improving year over year, so that as long as you hang on to them, you keep getting better and better. But I want somebody who knows how to navigate the portal, somebody that can raise a little money. They got to be able to do a little bit of everything, and that's the ULM way. You got to be able to do a little bit of everything. You can't just come here and be the radio guy. You got to be an SID too. Until this year, now I'm just a radio guy, but it's just kind of the way things are done here. And so I think you got to find somebody who checks all the boxes, but maybe has a little bit bigger check in some of those things, like finding the guys that are under recruited and then being able to develop them.
So you're saying we need Bryant Vincent to coach basketball and then find Ahmad Hardy again to throw him down there at point guard.
And guess what? You find an Ahmad Hardy in basketball, that's all you need sometimes. That's all you need to go and compete for a conference title and compete in the tournament. So I'll be interested to see how it works out for sure.
Chase, you're too young to remember these days of the early Sun Belt end of Southland days when there was UNO and one of my favorite collegiate players ever.
What year?
Of Bo McCaleb. We're talking 2004 to 7, somewhere around there.
So like elementary school.
Thanks, Chase.
Yeah, got your ass.
Who was Bo McCaleb? He was a point guard for UNO. He was under recruited, became a privateer, and shattered every record there was for Sunbelt and for the Southland Conference. Great ball handler. He was a guy that could put up 30 a night if he needed to, or he could just run the straight point and rack up the assists.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, if you know who the hell Bo McCaleb is, I want you to quote tweet this, tag at Warhawk Report, and with a picture of him. That's what I want.
They didn't have cameras back then, Chase.
They didn't have iPhones yet, so
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Mike, there's a coaching search underway. If not already, we know it's on the horizon. But for Keith Richard, what is his lasting legacy at ULM?
I've called him a ULM legend repeatedly. I mean, that's what he is. For a guy to play here, to start his coaching career here, to come back and lead this program. I mean, you've got to go back to where this program was when he took it over, in the midst of the APR sanctions and, the rumors that they could shut the program down and, getting talked out of it and all that. I mean, he brought it back from the depths of the dead. I mean, he literally injected life back into the program and brought him to the heights of, several years there, making deep runs and, CBI, CIT, all that. I mean, I know that's, third, fourth tier, but it's still postseason. It's postseason that this program hadn't seen in a while. And so, to have some of the dudes that came through this program, from Majuk to Travis Munnings to Deshaun Smith, I mean, some of those guys, I mean, goodness, he's had some really, really good players. Michael Ertl played in this program. I mean, they did such a nice job for so long. I hate the way it's ending. I absolutely hate the way this season has gone, because I feel like these guys have been close. They've been in a lot of games. I feel like the win-loss total should be a lot different than what it is, but they just haven't been able to close out some of those games to make this a little bit better of a season to close it out for him. But, it is what it is. But I think you focus more on how it started and where he started from and what it turned into. And it's still, even though this season is going how it's going, it's a program that's in better shape than it was when he took it over. And that's what you always say, leave it better than you found it. So, and he's absolutely doing that. And he's doing it for his alma mater, which I think is all the much more important there, part of it. So, I've been fortunate to do these 3 seasons with him, and work with him a little bit outside of that too. But, just a great guy to be around, a great man to lead this program. And it's going to be a lot different next year when I get on the bus and somebody else is the first person on the bus because I can show up 30 minutes early and coach is already sitting there ready to go. So it'll be a little bit different next season for sure. But, hopefully this team, hey, there's still 9 Sun Belt games to go. There's still Pensacola. Anything can happen, Why not be the first team to go win 7 games and win a conference tournament? I mean, just get hot at the right time and go on a tear. But, they've been close all season. So, there's no reason to think maybe they can't find, 3-4 wins down the stretch here and make it interesting. But we'll see what this group has. Starts with South Alabama Thursday night and, on to Troy Saturday. And hopefully they're able to use what happened Monday and build some momentum and finish this thing strong for him because coach deserves it.
That's an ESPN 30 for 30. If you can win the Sun Belt Conference as a double-digit seed, because
Mike Hammett needs to narrate it. Yeah,
exactly. And knowing though that your net's going to be low enough that you're not going to a regional, you're going to Dayton for the first 4. So that adds even another one where you're probably playing a MEAC or a SWAC school to get in, maybe a Southland team. But yeah, that's a lot of basketball. Like that. That's where you just kind of look at the scoreboard going, is it worth it that we get to go play Duke next,
Yes, it is.
Yes. The guy that has the travel team, I bet he's like, hell yeah, that's worth it. That's pretty cool. It would be cool.
Mike, you get to live out of a suitcase. Tell us some good tales from the road of what it's like traveling with the Warhawks for football, for basketball, for baseball. I think they even let you travel every now and again for track and golf, right?
Each sport is different traveling. I mean, it is football. When they fly, we fly with them. Until this past season, we stayed in the same hotel as a team. We changed that on our account this year. We moved to where the equipment team was staying just because they usually stay closer to the stadium. And so that makes it either an opportunity. David Cox has been phenomenal in helping us get to the hotel from the airport, but also, he's managed to help us get to the stadium too a couple times, and just trying to, me trying to be the good company guy, save a few bucks here and there, but it also makes for lower Uber bills too if we have to get our own ride to the stadium. But, and we still stay in a good place. Football travel is so different because I get to go with guys like Chase, Mike McGee, Corey Crow. I mean, that's the best. Traveling with those dudes is the best. I mean, we go out to eat Friday night. We have a good time. Mike McGee picks up the tab once or twice a season, which is even better.
Always buys a bottle of wine.
But the trick is you never know which night it is that McGee's picking up the tab. So you always got to order like you're paying for yourself, and then McGee picks up the tab at the end. So you can't go overboard. But no, thank you, Mike. I always appreciate you doing that for us. But because I'm sure he's listening to this now that he knows that I'm on here. I think he listens anyway. But no, and then it's we just have our general shenanigans, going to Tutors and Huntington and all that, and those guys having their disappointing experience. I had it before. My brother was a GA at Marshall a decade ago, and so I had already had Tutors, and it was good the time I went, and so I was like, yeah, let's go back. And yeah, it wasn't what I remembered, but so it was.
Just quick note about Tutors.
Yeah,
if you're ever in Huntington, West Virginia, what you should do is just about 15 minutes west of you is the airport. Go ahead and hop back on that plane, get the hell out of there, because that place was an awful. I know Huff had a lot of success there. I know there's been some great players. They made a movie that's not, I shouldn't talk about. I'm not going to joke about it seriously, but Huntington, West Virginia was a great experience. I'll echo the same sentiment, Hammett. Love traveling with you guys and McGee. Love when he pays for the bill. Auburn was a really cool spot this year. We went to a really cool little pub, sat at the bar. It was nice, and we've had our fair share of beautiful meals, especially last year. We went to Texas so many times. But, yeah, Huntington, West Virginia needs to they need to, don't visit. It's not a destination.
I loved it.
I'm sure you did.
I think if you're a college football fan, you got to make the trip. That's one of the
100%. And the We Are, I'll say the We Are was such a cool thing. That it was just the press box. Although I was on the field this year, the press box was tiny. Corey Crow has heart issues, so he gets, can't decide whether he's hot or cold the whole time. And then Mike's just talking in my ear about how hot he is, and I'm sitting down there shivering. So that was terrible. And then the cop kept talking to me, and he was a nice guy, but it's like, I'm doing a job here, man. And then, we decided to be good and bad that game. And it was just such a mix of emotions. They were cleaning the Ohio River, so it smelled like shit the whole time. It was a tough, I'll tell you a story about that, to keep going here. Sorry, Hammett. Is that we decided, so that night we go to, it was an Italian restaurant, right, Hammett?
Yes, yeah.
And why we went to an Italian restaurant in West Virginia, I'll never understand why. I think it was my idea, but I still don't understand why I did it. I call an Uber that only fits 4 people, and so we played, what did you call it? We played like clown car or whatever you called it.
Yeah. Packed all in there. Yeah, it's a clown car.
So Corey Crow's sitting on my lap pretty much the whole drive there. We get 15 minutes there. The restaurant was okay. And I totally forgot where I was going with this about Corey. But it was just not Corey sitting on my lap gave me a bad impression. But it's cold that night. We get back. I didn't know where I was. Didn't know how close we were to any other thing. It was just not a great fun times with the guys. But when we left, then we get delayed for an hour on the plane afterwards. And Mike McGee flies private, and his plane was the one that didn't present themselves, so we had to fly a circle for another 30 minutes. Thanks, Mike. And it was just full of – it was just a long – Tutors was terrible. It was
Now, if I remember correctly, was Marshall also the trip? Was that the one where we gathered in Mike's room to watch football and he fell?
That's where I was going with that. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were going. Thank you, Emmett. We decide after I've got a couple glasses of wine. I mean, if you know me, I'm a huge lightweight, so I had 2 or 3 glasses of wine. I was falling down drunk, and so I'm like, let's it's only like 6:00, guys. We got to go hang out. And McGee's like, yeah, come on to the room. We'll watch some football, and we're watching football, and we're talking, and Corey and Mike and I are talking there, kind of sitting in the chairs. And then you just hear Mike McGee in the corner on the top of his bed, fully clothed, shoes on, just snoring. And it was like 7:30. And
we just snuck out of his room and we quietly closed the door behind us. And he doesn't even remember when he woke up. Like, we don't know how long it took him to wake up. I think it was 10:30 maybe. I was running down to the lobby for a snack, and I think I texted Chase. I'm like, hey, did you guys ever hear from Mike again? He's like, no, haven't heard from him. So he may have still been asleep.
That y'all let him fall asleep with his shoes on. I mean, I thought that was 101 of college.
He's a grown man. He's falling asleep like grandpa in the corner. It's his problem. It pissed me off. I was like, we were having a great time. And then he goes and falls asleep in the corner. But as fun as they are.
We have fun experiences on the road in football. Austin this year, Chase came down and picked us up because it was stupid for Chase to come to Monroe and fly with us and, all that. But Chase comes to Austin, picks us up. We try one place for lunch. It was like an hour wait time. We end up going to Cabo Bob's down in Austin, and we get to the front of the line. I'm the last guy out of the 4 of us getting our food, and there's something going on in front of me. And then I get up there and the manager, he came up, asked if we're with the football team, and we said, yeah. And he said, okay, put them on my bill. And so the manager paid for our lunch that day. And so that was kind of cool. We're in a sea of burnt orange and we get a free meal. So Texas goes to the top of my road trip list, because anywhere I can get free food like that, you move to the top of my list. So step it up, Aggies, next time we come to College Station. And, how about Tuscaloosa? Hey, you got your chance coming up this fall, to do something solid too. So I don't know that Evanston, we're going up to, Big Ten country. I don't know what kind of scene we've got up there, but we have so much fun on the road. I mean, just so many fun experiences with these guys, I can't remember them all off the top of my head because I think I block them on purpose sometimes. But
you got to block out the pain.
We got to block out the pain, but it's different basketball and baseball. I mean, basketball and baseball is both get on the bus and ride with the team, and it's different experiences for both. I mean, basketball, we go to practice, we go to shoot around, we're in the hotel the rest of the time. And, you get meals like we're sitting here recording this. I'm still waiting on dinner to get delivered here just shy of 9:00. And it's always the same places every basketball road trip that we get our meals from. It's the chains. It's never anything local. It's always a chain of some sort. So we'll get that. But it's, basically business on the road with basketball. Baseball, again, it's, so many more guys for baseball. They turn you loose for meals and whatnot. So a lot of times you're just out on your own trying to find something to eat and whatnot. But, the baseball guys too, because you're around them a lot longer, there's more games and whatnot. They interact with me more and whatnot. I have a lot of fun with those guys. Not that I don't have fun with the basketball guys, but the baseball guys are a little more talkative to me and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting getting back on the road with Fed and the guys here in a couple weeks. I just found out this week we are busing to Coastal Carolina this season. That will be it's all because the PGA Tour is in Myrtle Beach that weekend. So
that's cool.
All the flights were insanely expensive, so that is why they are busing to Myrtle Beach. So
that'll be a Wyoming trip. And bus just so it'd be a little closer.
I mean, yeah, that might help. But we did the bus ride from Myrtle Beach to Monroe my first season, 2019, because that's where the conference tournament was, and you can't book a flight because you never know when you're going to be eliminated. And ULM was the bottom seed that year, and in my opinion, should have made the championship game that year. They kind of got the pulled on them there by Coastal Carolina with the lightning delay and a 9-4 lead in the 6th inning and an elimination game for Coastal, and ULM had the momentum and Colton Childress on the mound dealing, and they call a lightning delay for a storm that was 30 miles away, and the Sun Belt granted it, and then came back out of it. And guess what? Coastal's bats come to life, and they rally, and then we have to play a second game, and they win that one too. And Danny Reed at Georgia Southern and I, we go back and forth to this day. What would have happened? No lightning delay. ULM keeps the momentum, wins that game, and then you've got Trey Jeans on the mound against Georgia Southern on Championship Sunday. Who knows what happens? But it's been a fun ride. It's a lot of fun being on the road. It's also my chance to get stuff done. And so I set up in the hotel room and try to work ahead as much as I can. But it's hard on the family and the kids, and I miss them. And my wife tonight actually is messaging me about being at Sonic and getting a drink and for the kids, and my youngest stabbed a hole through it, and she's trying to clean up drink all over the seats while she waits on my oldest in basketball practice. And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know.
That sucks.
What to tell you. That sucks. I'm sorry. But that is life on the road, and that's the glamorous life of being a radio play-by-play guy.
That brings me, I love this story, Thibs, and I'm going to tell you the story of how I get asked a lot of how I even got into radio. And I love Mike Hammett. We're great friends. We talk all the time. But Mike was not the first friend of mine in his family. His wife, Desi, works at VCOM and was a colleague of mine and somebody who I relied on a lot, especially early on in my career. And then we worked a bunch together. And I remember she calls me up to her office, and she's in the dean's suite, not to give out personal information, but she's in the dean's suite. And so it was like getting called to the principal's office. And I walk in and I say, Desi, what's up? She said, please close the door. I said, okay. And she goes, Chase, I was talking with Mike last night, and, they're really having, he's got Mike McGee, and, he does radio, and Mike McGee is the color commentator, but, they were looking for a radio sideline radio. And do you think that you'd be interested in it? I said, Desi, text him right now. I will be over there in an hour. And I think the next week I was blowing Mike's phone up, and he's, I had no clue how much preparation goes into this, but Mike Hammett is the ultimate professional and does hours and hours each week of preparation. And I'm blowing his phone up like, Mike, I have no effing clue what I'm doing. And he kept saying, "It's okay. I'll get you some of that stuff later." And then he was like, "Tay, just show up. Make sure you show up."
Just show up.
And the day I showed up, I'm freaking out. I'm like, "Dude, I'm going to suck this." And he looks at me, he was like, "You're doing radio and you only talk for a minute every single quarter. It's not rocket science. You will be fine."
The phrase I like to use actually is rocket surgery. The first boss I had in radio, that's what he always said. We're doing radio, not rocket surgery. And he passed away a couple of years ago, so I really try to use that phrase a lot. But yeah,
you're right.
But I got to tell too, Chase and Mike McGee are such good friends, and their origin story was the Texas A&M game last season that we're on the road down. We stayed in Huntsville the night before the game, so we're driving to Huntsville. And I don't know, we had stopped somewhere because we had to keep stopping a lot. Mike and Corey need to stop a lot to go to the bathroom. Anyway, we get back in the car,
heart attack or whatever,
and we're going, and he says something. I don't even remember Mike grumbled about, but Mike grumbles sometimes. Okay, it's fine. It's McGee. We love him. It's fine. And Chase just goes, "Is he this grumpy all the time?" Just right there out in the middle of everything. And those two, like, I don't think they were really friends before that. They knew each other because we'd done a couple of games, but that's the moment it took off. And those two are almost inseparable now. I mean, it's incredible. Is he that grumpy all the time is the basis of their friendship. I mean, that's just, I think it's incredible. It's
he's in the back
to watch those two take off and grow together.
Grumpy. I'm not grumpy. I'm not grumpy. We had to stop every 15 minutes because you decided you had to be a superhero on this trip. And he just had a heart attack. And he is for sure the grumpiest person I know. And I love him to death as well. And yeah, I went to, go to his house for holidays and stuff now. It's been such a cool experience to kind of meet the radio, and it's not over for me. And, I don't know what the future holds for everybody else, but I can say that 5-hour drive is going to suck, and I'm going to put another 20,000 miles on my dang truck, and I hope Van Wagner eventually reimburses me, although I know they won't. But I've just loved it so much. And Thibs, I'm just saying, you gave me I feel so confident now. You think I got a great voice for radio? Because I remember my wife. Oh, you didn't say that?
No, I got DM'd and texted. You can say
it. My wife texted me after the first game I did, which I think was Georgia Southern Hammett. Am I right by that? Was that my first game in the booth?
Your first game as the analyst? Something like that. Yeah, I know you.
Yeah, Georgia Southern. Yeah. Which I have no, as Mike loves to point out every year, I got kicked out of the Georgia Southern game the last time I played in Statesboro. It's a long story for a different podcast. When we have Mike back, I'll tell it. But I had no love lost for the place. And I show up and my wife texts me. She was like, "Are you okay?" And that tell you guys, that tanks your confidence. You're like, "Oh, I'm doing terrible, aren't I?" And then I asked Mike the next week, I'm like, "Hey, how'd I do?" He was like, "Yeah, some people were asking if it was your first time." I was like, "Jesus Christ, guys, somebody give me some help here."
But you made it through, and you're not Mike McGee. And that's fine because I want you to be Chase Region. So that's, and it's you got to be yourself. And so, and I want Mike to be Mike. I mean, that's what makes him. So
basically, Mike talks about defense this whole time, and I only talk about offensive line. So his probably gets a lot better ratings. But I'll tell you what, I'll hammer that offensive line back. In the Texas game, they were like, "Who do you like?" And he was saying, Colin Simmons. No, he said the tight end. I think you said Colin Simmons, the defensive end. I said, "I'll tell you what, the left tackle, Kelvin Banks." You both were like, and by the way, he's going to be like the 5th overall draft pick. He's a stud. I don't want to hear it.
So all the trips down memory lane, we might as well talk about last time when we had Bryant Vincent out. Chase, you so over the top reminded him that we hate Louisiana Lafayette.
Hey, people need to know.
And he had an interesting response to that. Mm-hmm. When you said, "You've got to tell the guys that, you've got to tell the coaches that, you've got to tell everybody that." And he was like, "They didn't know."
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that because we were looking at 70 plus new players that probably barely even knew where ULM was, probably barely even knew where Louisiana was, where some of them had come from. And So from the outside looking in, there's nothing that really says that ULM and Louisiana Lafayette are just these huge rivals until you're kind of there and you experience it, you see it, you feel it, you touch it.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm going to be honest, I was trying to bait Coach Vincent to give us a quote there, I mean, he's been full of great quotes. I still take credit for House of Pain. That was episode 1 of this podcast. I still take credit for House of Pain, even though Mike Hammett doesn't even give me credit for that. But I was trying to bait him into saying something, and then I was a little taken aback by his comment because it's just what a different, when I was there, we were preached that really early. Hey, we, say what you want to, we hate these guys. Like they play dirty. They're always good. It's always a competitive game. They're known for their talented offensive line. They've had some great players offensive line, and good for them. But, it just shows you that and even on radio, I think Mike Hammett could tell you this. He tried to bait me this year into getting us fined because he said, Chase, remember that we are regulated and that you cannot cuss on this. But what do you have to say about Lafayette? And actually, the first year I called the game with Mike Hammett, I refused to say their name for like the first 30 minutes until he was like, you have to say the University of Louisiana Lafayette at some point. Because I kept saying these people down south and these guys down south. But I think it just shows you, like, I mean, obviously you're doing it with 70 new players, 70, 75. I think Hammett can give us the real number. But it almost, like, to me, that shouldn't matter. And maybe that's his coaching style. Maybe it's just next game up type guy. And I can appreciate that. And obviously I'm on his train. I'm with him. But I just wish that, and I hope that changes this year, because I'm walking down the sidelines pissed off, right? And I've got a mic in my hand. I look really weird with, thankfully this year I got a new mic so I can mute myself, but I'm just screaming, F these guys. We hey, we hate these guys. And I'm walking off I walk off from the coin toss and I'm screaming, let's go. And it's I think you have 2 ULM players there on staff now, right? I think Coach Osborne was pumped up. He gets it. But I hope this year you kind of see that change.
I think also that you rambled on so long that I lost my point.
Sorry. I just hate Lafayette, dude. And you know what? Like, I'm cool with that. If that's my identity, if that's what you know me for, that's fine. I hate Lafayette. I love ULM. And I think that it's just you're probably going to go with how football's changing, transfer portal, and all that. And I think that's an important note here is that I hope the transfer, I don't think it'll kill Ohio State, Michigan. I don't think it'll kill Texas A&M. I think they're such rooted fan bases. And I don't think it'll kill ULM, ULL. But, Mike, I'd love your perspective here because you come in as, for a job, and I'm not saying you don't love ULM. I know you love ULM now. But what was your first year experience kind of watching that game and like your experience then on?
Look, throughout my career, I've learned where my paycheck comes from. I learned who to hate pretty fast. So that's, my paycheck tells me I don't like those guys, and I don't. The thing is, I like a lot of the guys I deal with from down there. I'm good friends with Jay Walker, their play-by-play guy, and Matt Sullivan, one of their SIDs, is fantastic and one of my favorite guys to run into in this league. But you know what? I want to beat the crap out of them every time we play them, and that's the thing is, as a broadcaster, I learn, that you know the rivals right away. I don't ever want to lose to those guys. And, I've been here 7 years. I will love ULM forever. I mean, my kids have grown up a lot in Monroe. And so it's always going to have a special place for us, whether we're here another 30 years or we're here, whoever, whatever happens, I don't know what, nobody knows what anything has in store for them. So it is, for example, I still hate Northwestern Oklahoma State. I'm probably the only person in Monroe, Louisiana that hates Northwestern Oklahoma State, but my last stop was at Southwestern Oklahoma State. So, and I still hate the Bethany College Swedes up in Kansas because I was at Kansas Wesleyan. And, so, I mean, it sticks with you, And so I didn't go to Kansas Wesleyan as a student or to Southwestern Oklahoma as a student, but I still hate them. And then as a student, of course, I hate Nebraska Kearney because I'm a Fort Hays Tiger. So, but it's the same thing. I mean, that's what when I was in college, Chase, it's the same thing for you. Why you hate Lafayette so much? That's why I hate Nebraska Kearney. Okay, it's no, nothing ever good can come out of Nebraska Kearney. So, but that's I do what the paycheck tells me, and then it sticks with me because my broadcasting philosophy is, I put my heart into it. I live and die with everything, as taxing as that can be at times, and I try not to let it affect my mood, but I do. And so I want my teams to win more than anything else because I'm paid to be the play-by-play voice. I'm not paid to be objective. I try to be objective, to an extent, but I also, it's like, I want the Warhawks to win more than anything else. So that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. And that means, I don't have much for the Cajuns.
But Chase, I think also short term, at least in 24, I think the number one rival overall over any and everyone was UAB.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that showed on the field.
And so short term, I guess for his inaugural year, he kind of gets the bye of getting it, or should I say, of not getting it, because he was playing kind of his personal rival there. But this year, when you got to go to Lafayette, the place where there was a anonymous call for a bomb threat, just as we happened to all be loading up on the bus to head to the Cajun field, and then they zigzagged us all around Lafayette through roadblocks that took, instead of the 15 minutes, took us 45 minutes to get to the stadium. That's the type of things that A, make rivalries great, and B, that's why we hate those guys.
Hate those guys. I hope the splinters in the visiting locker room gets their ass every single time, because those dudes, and I'm sorry for rambling earlier and making you lose your train of thought, but I'm really not that sorry, because I just have a deep, you have to embrace that. I think it's a cool thing that we get to play every year. I would love to see more wins in our win column. I had the opportunity to beat them while they had a really good team, and I was grateful that we had the success we did against him. But yeah, I think if you're mad about that, I think I'll give him a bye this year, because I agree, because UAB was you could tell, dude, there was just a different energy, and you had that energy in spurts, but not the way that whole game went. And I need to see that this year against Lafayette, because you can see, and I don't, this is speculation, but that is a make or break game for me in believing you as a head coach. And I realize it didn't go our way this year, but I'm not holding anything against him he had a brutal last 6 games. But this game can literally get you fired. And this is the one. Now, I'm not talking about firing BV. Nobody clip that. Nobody quote that. But this is the game that you need to get back to winning.
I love how right after you said that, Hammett picks up his phone and starts texting.
Yeah, I didn't like that either. I'm waiting for the "hey, chill out" text.
No, another issue at home.
They
always happen when I'm on the road, and yeah, it's the wife. I couldn't put that one off, so yeah, I had to respond there. But yeah, like I say, it always happens when I'm on the road. Inevitably, something, when I'm home, everything's chill and fine, and then for whatever reason, my kids just cannot keep it together when I'm out on the road.
Hey, but that's what he says, Chase. But John's going to call you in about 10 minutes and be like,
right, bro, you gotta. I thought you were a fan of ours. What did you do? I've got to give a quick shout out. Mike's talking about his kids, and in the football radio broadcast, you have a play-by-play announcer, Mike Hammett, voice of the Warhawks. You have a color analyst who this past 2 years, or past, I don't know how many years he's done it. He's kind of old, but that's Mike McGee.
7 years, yeah. Mike
and
McGee.
Then you have Sideline, who is myself. But what you don't see and what you never hear from is that you have a spotter in the booth, okay? And a spotter holds a pair of binoculars, as do sometimes Mike and sometimes Mike and Mike. And that spotter will tell you who made the play. He points to, we have charts in front of us if you're in the booth. He points to who made the play. He never actually did it for me, but even though I asked him to every time. And that spotter is the best spotter in America, and his name is CJ Hammett, and he's a great kid. And I think it's such a cool thing that Mike gets to bring his kid with us sometimes. He's always hanging out in the back with his headphones on like the kid he is, and he doesn't want to listen to us at all. But just a quick shout out there to CJ. He's great. He's great. And I've loved having him.
And what was it? I think it was the Dan Knudsen fumble return against JMU. I forget who it was that got credit for the forced fumble. I don't remember if it was Earl Barquette or who it was, but whoever it was, he was right. They had it in on the stats as one player, and then they went back and watched it again later, and I went back and watched it on ESPN Plus afterwards, and I said, no, that was who they told me it was. The radio call is correct on that play because he got it, and so we got a hold of Martin, and Martin went and confirmed it himself. He said, yeah, that's right, and so yeah, that's pretty good for what was an 11-year-old kid at the time. And so, yeah, I've got him for a few more years, and I got another one that's 3 that I'm sure will do the same thing today.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Making history, making memories.
Absolutely.
Chase, what do you have to close us out with?
What do I have to close out with? Okay, I'll tell you, this is a cool story, and I don't know if you're going to give a shit about it, but you mentioned Texas earlier, and or Hammett mentioned Texas earlier. And, you know, I've moved to the Fort Worth area, and I've been working at a new gym. I'm not going to name it, but it's an athlete training performance facility. Obviously, I no longer belong there, but I feel like I do in my head. So as I sit here with a back injury now. And last Saturday, I show up 15 minutes late, my per usual, as Mike Hammett can tell you. And I'm doing my warm-up, and then I look to my right, and I asked the trainer helping us, I said, is that who I think it is? He said, yeah. And Thibs, when I tell you it was Colt McCoy sitting right next to me, pumping iron, dude. Dude is going crazy. And me being myself, he was honored at the Texas game this year. And I get to watch the ensuing roar of a crowd because they love Colt McCoy in Austin. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, Colt, I was at the game that you got honored this year. They did a really great job. He was like, thanks, man. Glad you went. I said, no, I was on the other sideline. It went really poorly for us. And he just stared at me. We just looked at each other for a few seconds, and he was like, okay. And I was like, all right. And I walked away. So I can officially say I've met Colt McCoy, and I don't even know if he remembered who they played that day.
You blew his mind. I love it. Mike, we close out with good stories. Give us a good story from the road.
I didn't tell it earlier, but this is not a Chase Region story. This goes back to the 2019 football season. We went to Iowa State. Okay, so we stayed in Des Moines. And as the radio crew, as I mentioned, we usually have to get a ride to the stadium somehow, some way. You would be surprised at the lack of Ubers available at 5:30 in the morning in Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, there's just nobody out there. And so we eventually got one guy who was, I forget even what the make and model of the car was, but it was small. And we request an XL all the time because when we go to the stadium, we've got all our radio equipment back then. And this year I started sending that with David Cox and put it on the truck. We don't have to worry about it. We had all our equipment. We had all our luggage. We got everything. And so we're trying to cram us in, and he's got a little car that only had 4 other seats in it. We had to stuff everything in. We had Mike McGee sitting in the front seat. We put Nick White, myself, and Nick and I are big dudes, okay, and Corey Crow in between us in the back seat, shoulder to shoulder. We are scrunched in there. We're crammed up against the door, and I'm up against Corey Crow's leg and his side and everything. And we're in like a pack of sardines. But we're just thankful we got a ride to Ames. And so we're going down the road, and this guy's like, is it okay if I stop and fill up with gas? And we're like, yeah, of course, you need gas to get us there. Like, just do it. And so we stopped, and then of course we get there, and I got to fill in on sideline that day because Tag conveniently couldn't make the trip, but probably good that Tag wouldn't make the trip, because if he did, we wouldn't have found an Uber. So we do get there, and of course, every time Tag couldn't do sideline, it rained, and it just poured on me all day long after being in the clown car in the morning, and then it just poured all day, and Brock Purdy and David Montgomery did their thing that afternoon, and it just that was a miserable experience, but it's still a fun story to tell, and I love it when it pops up in the Facebook memories every year, because we did a Facebook Live from the car while the guy's filling up with gas to say, hey, we're on the road and we're on the air at 8 a.m., but this is our current situation with Corey Crow and getting in between Nick and I, and we've got equipment on our laps, and goodness, that's just that's FBS radio at its finest right there. It is the glory, the everything that I've worked my whole career for. You think it's going to be all wonderful, and that's the reality of what it is.
Before we leave, Hammett, you post some really awesome clips of the great calls that you have. Can you tell everybody where they can follow you to find those?
That would be at Mike Hammett on Twitter, HAMMETT_, by the way, at the end of that. The other's some musician of some sort if you don't put the underscore at the end. Or at Mike.Hammett, I Bleav, on Instagram. I've been posting some reels there. Desi's been helping me with those the last couple of basketball games, and we've had some highlight dunks. And so going to keep cranking out the content and keep that going. But here we are. Crossover season part 2 is upon us, and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, thank you so much, and look forward to hearing you call another Warhawk basketball win, and then ready for the ping of the bats for baseball. And Chase is not looking forward to that, but everyone else in America is.
Thanks for having me, guys. Anytime. Look forward to doing this again sometime.
Thanks, Mike.